quick and let you know how the mailing system works for our congressman. It's pretty lame, actually. So I've got a few samples of some postcards here that Dan Newhouse has mailed out. And one of the things I want to point out, for starters, is this right here. Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives. This is called Frank Mail. And so what's interesting is Representative Newhouse only sends these out prior to an election. He doesn't really send these out. I don't recall seeing these the last handful of cycles here any other time other than right before the primary election. Now, he is restricted, I believe it's 6 weeks before the election. So he's only got about another 3 or 4 weeks, but I bet you this one just came in the mail today. And I bet you that you'll probably get 2 or 3 or 4 more of these in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And that's paid for using our tax dollars. So me as a candidate running for Congress against this guy who has traded us, he gets to use my tax dollars and your tax dollars to send us postcards to sell himself to try to get reelected. And it's really lame, but it goes deeper than that. So first of all, let's talk about the postcard that he just sent out. The Chinese Communist Party. He's trying to make it sound really bad, which it is. The problem is that this guy right here, he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar just was it last year or the year before? So we're in 24 now. It was in 2022. It was found out that he was taking, I don't even remember how much it was. It was tens of thousands of dollars from Chinese Big Ag. And it was significantly more, in fact, than what those companies were giving to other representatives. And he had to do some speaking around that because his hand was in the cookie jar. So now he's trying to convince us that he's against this red China, and he's doing the same thing with the dam issue, with the power dams and the Snake River dams generally. Those are the 4 that are under threat. We've got over 60 dams in Washington, but those are the ones that are under threat. And so he's making a big deal about that. And he's also making a big deal about the grizzly bear issue up in north central Washington. And I've put out stuff on that as well. So let's look at this and see what else we could say. Look, says we have 40 million acres, and that's including over 1.7 million acres of farmland in Washington. He's never had any concern with China buying land until it's time for re-election. And in fact, he's never lifted a finger and has even taken money from these companies that are buying this land. But yet we're supposed to believe that he's really, really concerned about Chinese nationals or Chinese companies owning land. I don't think so. We're not going to fall for that. Here's another one, same thing, paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives. Another postcard that he sent out. This one is sort of like a little letter. He's saying basically he votes to impeach President Trump, but he gives a little slap on the hand for illegitimate Biden, Joe Obama, by telling him that you've crossed the red line. Yeah, real serious there, Mr. Newhouse. I don't think so. We're not falling for that. This one here is really interesting. This is another one that came, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 months ago, but this one is really interesting. There's a number of things to point out on this. Number one, same thing, paid for by Congress. So this doesn't cost him a thing. He pays a designer to design these, and he doesn't have to do anything. We pay to send it out, and he gets reelected. Works out really nice, doesn't it? This one's interesting because they're talking about cases they solved this year. They're bragging about 450 cases that they've solved. What people don't realize, there's a little map of central Washington on one of these. I don't remember where it was at, but it's kind of interesting. Maybe it's on the back of this one. I don't know where it's at. Anyways, it was on one of those. And what's interesting about it is inside of the district, there is about 750,000 people. And on this here, he's basically bragging about and taking credit for solving 450 issues. So 450 issues this year doesn't seem like very many to me. It's not something I think I would be bragging about. You have 750,000 people in your district. If you go, I've already set up a thing called the Eastern Washington Helpline. That's the method I will use. We could solve 450 issues a week, and with no problem, using the system that I've already built and that I will put into place once I'm elected. So that's one thing. It's just lame that he's playing to you. This is all marketing. And he probably doesn't even see this. Some marketing person writes this, and he's got a little QR code here. You can sign up to make sure you keep getting his stuff digitally and whatever. This is the part I think is the most insidious right here. So if you look at this right here, he's saying, fighting for the priorities of Central Washington. These are all things that we agree on. We want to save the dams. We want to strengthen public safety, getting our economy back on track, supporting our veterans, fighting for farmers. Every one of those, 100% thumbs up, right? So here's what's interesting. He says, I introduced the Northwest Energy Security Act. Do you see any bill numbers there? Okay, there's a bunch of them on here. The SAFE Act for law enforcement officers preventing overdose death attacks. Another one, the Stop Overdose in Schools Act. See this thing he says, I introduced. This is marketing speak. These bills, you can look these up. I actually did it with these. I think there's 6 or 7 of them on here. There's another one down here, VA Electronic Record Modernization Improvement Act. That sounds awesome, right? He voted for a bill in, I believe it was 2022, which was a vaccine tracking passport system that actually passed through Congress, and he voted for it, which allows the government to track whether or not we've been vaccinated. But he brags about introducing a bill that sounds really good. It's a modernization act for our veterans' medical records, right? Their health records. That'd be really cool. It's never going to happen. I'll explain why. Here's another one. Agricultural Product Export Promotion Act, right? Sounds like, hey, we want to do some marketing for our farmers so that they can sell their products and export it. 80% of the ag products grown in Washington state are exported, so of course that's good. I didn't highlight the SAFE Act, but it's here. And then we have the Stop Overdose. So we have all these things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or something on here. And I think there's another one on this side. Okay, I looked up every single one of these bills. I did this a couple months ago when this came out. And none of these are more than marketing. They're just a page of information about this idea. They will never go to committee. They will never see a House floor vote. They don't have co-sponsors. They are going nowhere. They could have literally been written by a marketing person, and yet he is putting it down here saying, hey, I'm going to save our dams. Well, guess what? He's been in Congress for 10 years and he's done nothing to save our dams. And meanwhile, while he's been in Congress and we've paid him for 10 years, he's gone from being worth $700,000 to the reports I read online estimate that he's worth $27 million. He's now one of the top 25 wealthiest people in Congress, doing things like buying Raytheon 2 weeks ago, just 2 days before they passed the $95 billion aid package, which I think 61 million of it went to Ukraine. And a lot of that obviously went to Raytheon. And so he'd never bought Raytheon before, but right before they spend $95 billion of our money, it's actually not even our money, it's our borrowed money, he buys Raytheon, and that's how he pads his pockets. At least that's one of the ways that he does it. But it's just disgusting because all these things are really important, and we do actually need to do things to protect them. But this is just marketing speak, and so he's manipulating you. He's lying to you. This is no different than lying. He's lying to you so that he can hold his little lofty position where he gets to go do the photo ops and supposedly represent our district, and it's terrible. I'll tell you just real quick with regards to the dams. On January 4th, I did a live debate with him, and they asked a question about what are you going to do to protect the dams? And I said, he answered the question with just typical political speak. He didn't answer it. And I said, hey, I think that we should replicate the Endangered Species Act and call it a Critical Infrastructure Act and put all of our power generation and our transmission on that so that we could protect it, and legally and physically, just like what Idaho Power's doing. They're putting ballistic fences around their energy stations so that people can't shoot at their equipment. And that was on January 4th. I mentioned that. On January 24th, 20 days later, this guy and his team introduced what they call the Dam Act, which was basically my idea. So we need to elect someone who actually has good ideas that will actually, I've already got relationships with many of the members in the Freedom Caucus, and beyond that, even members that are not in the Freedom Caucus. And I'll be able to get co-sponsors and we'll be able to get stuff done. Dan Newhouse is not the answer. He never was.